Hi and welcome back to the next series of vlogs. My name is Ross Bennett, Head of Performance at DD Sports Science, Head of Performance at Queen's Park Rangers Football Club, and Academy Coach as well, coaching the under-16s this season. Last time we did something around a high press, so I spoke about how to coach the high press, or how to set up your team in a soccer or football situation for the high press. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the low block. Something that's not as consistent in the way that we coach here, but definitely has a place for the right team or the right system. So we're going to start. This is how it was left before with the high block, more or less. So we're going to speak a little bit about the high press role. We're going to speak a little bit about the low block. So the low block, I think, is to suit a couple of reasons. One, you don't feel that your team can match another team 1v1 all over the pitch, so you need to adopt a bit more of a defensive style to be able to counteract their attacking prowess. And number two, you might have personnel that suit this low block defensive style because you want to be able to hit teams on the counter attack. So you ensure that there's a lot of players a little bit further down the pitch in terms of where you want to attack, and you can isolate 1v1 a bit higher up. So you do need a certain style of players to be able to play a low block, attacking wise. Defensively, you can coach any team into this and be organised and structured, and that's how we'll talk about a little bit today. So just going to put on here, okay, so we're going to be coaching the blue team. Probably a little bit too high on here, so we talk about a low block. So whereas on the high block we went very high, so even when we talk about the dead ball situation, you don't want to get a situation where your back line are dropping too deep, even when, let's say we're still playing 4-3-3, even when our front players are dropping off a little bit, because the distance between those two units are going to be pivotal in success in the game. So if it's too expansive here, it's too much for the midfielders to be able to cover, essentially. But we want to make sure we're a bit more pragmatic in the way that we play. I don't know if you guys remember, Bayern Munich played a very, very interesting system where they played a fairly mid-block, but they also played a high line, which is something that you can consider with your team as well. Obviously not as transferable to the Gaelic because there's no offside rule, but in soccer, this would be very, very effective if you allow the back four to have the ball, as long as you've got a keeper that comes sweep and fairly competent defenders to be able to run and track runners in behind. But let's stick to fairly conventional styles of low block today. So from a goal kick situation, the reason why you set up a low block is you're happy for the team to be able to have possession in front of at least 10 of your players. All right, so the 9 might creep this side of the 4. Of their 4, this is if they're both playing a 4-3-3. You will allow them to have possession here. And the main thing around the low block, or the mid to low block, is around screening passing lanes. You don't want the ball to be played through anyone. So it's all about your organisation to shuffle over, like it was in the high press, but it's really, really important here because you're going to allow possession, especially in their first quarter of the pitch, and even their first third. So the 9 may play predictable, a little bit further on, but essentially you allow the Reds to what we call play around the arc, play around the back 4. We're happy for them to have possession in that area of the pitch. What you do need to try and make sure, though, is there's a clear point or reference point of when you're going to engage. So whether it's a mid-block around here, or whether it's even lower, as the play develops, probably not from a goal kick, but as the play develops, you need to have clear reference points of whoever gets the ball, we're going to go and engage at some point. So I would say 9 would still try to pass this ball into the 4 at all given opportunities. This player, which we'd call the 11, would drop in and probably start to engage the fullback at this point, unless centre half decides to step. If it goes to the fullback, we're probably going to get pressure on here because of where it is in the pitch, if we're going to go a little bit further down the pitch. We're blocking passing lanes here. Yeah, this winger, opposite winger always has to come in, opposite fullback always has to come in, and we have to shuffle over. Okay, 4, centre half, there's our 8, there's our 9, ball side. So we're blocking passing lanes here, so fullback's in here, midfielder comes over, our 4, try and screen the ball into the 9, inside shoulder here, so we can win the ball on the right shoulder coming in here. and players protecting the space. Centre half coming over to cover. Okay, so all these principles are fairly similar. Wherever you are on the pitch, you're always going to have these principles, but the main thing around this one is having a clear trigger. So if they're coming into the middle third, I would say fullbacks, or if it's bounced into midfield, obviously we have to press, yeah? But probably the trigger is going to be to the fullback, because the 9's going to get the screen, the 11's going to come over, left wing is going to come over, maybe force the one down the line where our 3 can deal with it. We try and avoid them playing into the middle of the pitch. If they're slightly deeper, and you're happy for their fullbacks to have the ball, then the trigger is probably going to be into midfield, stopping the pass into midfield, so we're always shuffling over. The 9's here, the 4's also being marked by our 10. Let's set ourselves up a little bit neutral here. Right back, centre half, 9, and we're not too deep. Screen, so the 4 screens as well as looking after their 10. Over the pitch on the left hand side, probably going to look at something like this. Yeah, so you're allowing the back 4 to have the ball, but you're trying to stop the traffic. Now, the ball, natural things, the ball's going to get zipped around the back. Yeah, so moved around, switch of play. We have to make sure we get over. 4's going to come want the ball. He's got to try and screen it. Gets over to defending goal side. It's probably going 9's going to definitely come over. Can the 4, R4 or 8 there, look, if he moves into that position, screen that player. If he starts to go off the eye line, winger comes in the pitch, fullback comes in the pitch. So we're constantly shuffling side to side, and we're trying to force, like we did in the high press a little bit, but we're trying to force things one way, just a little bit further down the pitch. This becomes even more important if we find ourselves camped in, all right, which can happen. So if the team are dominating, we might find ourselves in this style, which is why I'm a little bit reluctant to play it, because at times it does invite pressure. If we camped in, let's move all these back. There's the 4, there's our midfielders, there's the wide men or women. Now they've got possession on the halfway line. Now we're in a position where we're a little bit camped in the half. Yeah, so they might be further up. This winger's going to be moved on, etc. So the only thing we need to make sure we think about here, so you can see the momentum's completely changed. Now we're basically camping in just outside the 18-yard box, which it is a possibility. The thing we need to make sure now is that when we win the ball back, we have an outlet. So we have 9 being able to run the channel, which is why you want him shuffling and sliding to stop the ball into the 4, but we don't want to knacker him too much and make him too tired that he can't affect the game that way when we get the ball. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to go anywhere. And talking about the characteristics of counter-attacking football, we probably need wingers who are able to affect, or at least one able to affect right and left side, and we're definitely going to need an 8 or a 10 who can go beyond and affect there, go beyond. So we do need forward runners in a counter in a low block, because otherwise we've got no outlet. That's an important thing to think about. So key things to really think about in the low block is, depending on where you're going to set up this low block, are you going to camp in this half? For me, I think you invite too much pressure here. If you're worried about the opposition, then you need to make sure that I think you go to more of a mid block, so you allow them the first third. So we've got the 9 here. Just to recap on this stuff, let's get people up the pitch. Yeah. Ball here. And you do 2 things. You stop their 4 getting on the ball, so the 9 always screens the 4, and you invite the ball wide. And that's probably your trigger then to be able to get the 9 over, stop the pass to the 4, but also we lock on here at the right time of the pitch. If he wants to play the line, we can maybe cut off source here. We've got adequate screening positions here, centre half we can deal with the 9. We come over, we cover, we tuck over, and you try to deny any pass into the front line. Yeah, same thing other side, we just all shuffle. So the main thing is around picking the reference point of where you're going to play this, whether it's a low block, mid block, or you're just trying to contain them in a certain area of the pitch, so you're giving up a third. Must have a definite trigger of when you're going to go and press, so press goes to the fullback at a certain area when they get into the middle third, and you always need to have an outlet when you win the ball back. So if you focus too much on the defensive side, you're going to give yourself no chance to impose yourself on the game. So ball comes in, say we win it in midfield, we've got to have good runners from the 10, the 9, the wingers to be able to go and affect the game. And then of course, if we transition the ball, we have to get back in and be very disciplined. So lots and lots of hours on the coaching, on the grass, coaching this specific style of play, I think, in terms of reference points, triggers, how we're going to set up, where we're going to engage. But lots of things to consider about winning the ball back, how high we have our line, how high is the keeper, do we drop off a bit more to allow ourselves a bit of space, what's the implications of the midfield then, how do they dominate this midfield area, how does this person help in terms of screening the pass into the midfield, how does the 4 in terms of screening the pass into the front man and stopping any ball into the front man, and so on and so forth. So lots and lots of things to take away. 2 contrasting styles now within the high press and the low block or mid block. And soon we'll do an exclusive members webinar where we'll get the tactics board out and we can just basically talk through some scenarios that's up to your choice. Okay, thank you very much. I hope that was interesting. We'll speak soon.